Good morning. We're going to get started. First of all, I'd like to thank you for coming out this morning. The purpose of these meetings are not to sit and listen to me talk. I've done that in the past, and the purpose of these meetings is to get your input specific to our long-term strategic plan. And as you probably are aware, when developing a strategic plan, it's important to get input from all the stakeholders, to include community and parents as well. And so this will be an interactive meeting in which we are seeking your feedback and using that feedback in the development of our long-term strategic plan so that we all have a stake in the future health of our district. We previously put out an online survey to the community. We got many responses to that survey, and from those responses we gleaned a few things about what our community believes specific to our children and what our community expects from the district as a whole. The first thing we learned from the community is that you want a school system that is as good or better than the highest performing school districts. As a superintendent of this district and also an employee of this district since 1980, and having 4 children in this district and one who has moved through this district, and being a part of this community for the better part of my adult life, I am extremely vested in the township of Bolingbrook and Romeoville, and obviously as a superintendent of schools, very vested in our district. One of the things that troubles me the most about the perception of our district is that somehow we aren't as good as our surrounding districts, and that's a significant problem for me. First of all, that perception is untrue, and there are many variables that surround the actual numbers that the laymen don't really understand when looking at outcomes. But despite that, I still want the perception as well as the reality to be that our district is equal to not just the districts around us, but equal to, if not better than, any district in the country. And I don't think that that is unrealistic by any stretch of the imagination, because there are the very high performing districts in the country, and I just don't see any reason why we can't be one of them. And the only thing that would stop us from that is ourselves. And so when I hear things such as Plainfield District or Naperville or Downers Grove or any of those things, any of those other districts, it's bothersome to me that there's a perception that in some way, shape, or form the quality of education in those districts is better than the quality of education in our district. So we've understood from you that you want to see that perception change. You also want for our students to be prepared for life after high school. So that is parcel to one of the reasons why we have increased the rigor in our curriculum, and not just increased the rigor in our curriculum, but also focused on the socio-emotional aspects of a child's life to ensure that when they graduate from our school, they have equal opportunity and they have choice to be able to go into the workforce, to into trade school, or into a 2 or 4 year college. In the past, some of our students have had the choice made for them, because as a system, we channel them into particular, what I call tracks or strands, that limited their choices when they graduate. And I think some people perceive that it's my expectation that 100% of our kids go to college. That is not true. Clearly, college is not for every child. But the option to go to college should be for every child. And if they so choose to want to go to college, there should be nothing about their experience in Valley View School District that precludes that possibility from happening. You also want those who work with our children to be highly qualified. Well, the state's kind of defined what that is for us. So that's not really negotiable. We are expected to have highly qualified, what we call highly qualified teachers as defined by their certification. But beyond just being highly qualified, we want people who have a high degree of empathy for our children, a very high degree of empathy for our children, because in this district, there is a need for a much higher degree of empathy than there would be in some of the surrounding districts that we've been compared to as a result of our socioeconomic status and our heterogeneity. And part of that empathy has to be taught. And so one of our goals is to ensure that we are culturally competent and that we are trained in the area of competency as it applies to culture. And the fact that each of us bring our unique experience to the table does not necessarily make us equipped to deal with the diversity within our district simply because we're immersed in it. And so we need to be trained in areas of cultural competency to ensure that we can affect positive outcomes for our kids so that they have choice upon graduation. We are in the process right now of contracting with particular companies who specialize in training surrounding cultural competency. I met with a group just the other day who espouses that as a result of their program, they were able to support increased achievement in districts and decrease the gap in achievement between the particular subgroups, of which in our district we have all of the ones that are defined by the state. In some of our surrounding districts, they are nowhere near close to defining all of the subgroups. So our task is even much more difficult than theirs, just simply because of our heterogeneity. But one of the things they pointed out was that our district was similar to some of these other districts, of which I had to point out that we were not. So as they were going through their pitch, I was on my iPad pulling the data, because if there's one thing people know about me, I probably data-driven to a fault. And as I was pulling this information, I was looking at the demographics of these other districts in comparison to our district, and I was looking at the socioeconomic status of these other districts and compare it to our districts. And when they were finished with their spiel, I indicated to them how much more difficult their task would be in our district. And before we were going to commit to entering into contract with them, that I wanted them to be aware of just exactly what they were entering into. So when they compared us to the two Napervilles and to Plainfield and to Oswego, the highest percentage of low-income kids was in Plainfield, and it was at 21%, and we are at 53%. The highest percent of African-American kids in any one of those districts was less than 10%. We're at 21%. The lowest percentage of white kids in any one of those districts was 60%. We're at 29%. And so there are significant differences between those districts and ours. But when you compare apples to apples, when you compare like kids to like kids, our district performs equally as well, if not better, than even some of those districts. But we're not comparing apples to apples and like kids to like kids. But when you break it down and you look at apples to apples, our district performs. In fact, I haven't found a district that has the percentage of Hispanic or black or low-income kids that does better than ours. Now, that's not saying a lot, because as an education system, we don't do very well by all of our children, by any stretch of the imagination. So being the best of the worst isn't something that we really hang our hat on. We want to be the best of the best, despite any of our variables. So that will require not just highly qualified teachers, but also teachers who have a high degree of empathy and have a high degree of care and love for our children and all of our children. You want us to be fiscally responsible, and that's critical in today's times, because we are in a financial crisis in this country. And this is the perfect storm for this district, because we are attempting to, on the one hand, bring our curriculum and our instruction and our assessment and our accountability up to a very high level, which costs money. while at the same time trying to remain fiscally responsible. You can see many school districts across the state striking, and they're basically striking over the very same formula. It centers around pay, it centers around retirement, it centers around insurance, and it centers around one other thing. I forgot, but evaluation, SB 7, which is a real sticking point for many districts as well as ours. We've spent a considerable amount of money, a considerable amount of our resources on all-day kindergarten and summer learning experience and things of that nature because it's critical to our children. And so we have to expend resources in order to bring ourselves up to speed with surrounding districts in a time that we're asked to be fiscally responsible. And Mr. Grazafi here, our assistant superintendent, is probably one of the best at making sure that we're able to navigate those waters while at the same time remaining solvent. And then you also ask for a greater degree of accountability, and that's something that I hold very near and dear to my heart, and the first person I hold accountable is me. And I've said before, and I'll say again, that anything and everything that happens in this district is my responsibility, and that anything and everything that happens in this district that is a problem, I will accept responsibility for and accountability for. You will never, ever hear me cast blame on anyone but myself in terms of issues of concern within this district publicly. Privately, we have those conversations, but publicly, I accept responsibility for everything that's in this district. Ultimately, you are the people who should hold us accountable. The fact that you are here is heartwarming to me because we have people who care enough about this district to hold us accountable. I will not run from that accountability. You hold me accountable through the board members that you put in those positions, and then they hold me accountable, and I hold everyone else accountable within this system to assure that the outcomes that you expect for your children are bore out. Finally, I will say that these high-performing, so-called high-performing districts are not high-performing as a result of what's going on inside those buildings. Please understand that what goes on inside those buildings in many ways, shapes, and form is not even what goes on inside our buildings in terms of efficacy. High-performing districts are high-performing because of the communities they serve. The expectation of those communities, the socioeconomic status of those communities. If a district is in the middle of a very rich community who has college-educated parents in all homes, and all the homes are $1 million to $500,000, yes, those districts are going to be high-performing because it's what the community expects. It's the supports that go into those districts. If you took this staff and you put them in the middle of a northern high-performing district, we would be equally as high-performing. And in fact, in many ways, many of these high-performing districts are not equipped to deal with, on a daily basis, what our staff has to deal with in terms of us having a third split, and having low-income kids, and having kids who are affluent, and everyone in between. Clearly, the more homogeneous you are, the greater your capacity to be high-performing. But if you took our kids with all of the issues that they bring to the table and put them in a high-performing district and changed nothing, I can guarantee you that their outcomes would not be the same. Their outcomes would be far less than their outcomes are in this district, because our teachers and our administrators are far more equipped to deal with all of those issues of concern that some of the higher performing districts don't have to deal with, and if you don't have to deal with, you don't know how. But we must get better at that. How much greater would we be than a homogeneous high-performing district with our demographics that they don't have? If we can match the outcomes of high-performing, homogeneous, very rich districts with our kids, I dare say that we would be twice the district that they would be. And so if you look at it more in depth, we really aren't that far behind those high-performing districts. We are, in terms of just flat-out scores, in some cases 10, 12 points from a holistic perspective. But if you break our kids out, I will say again, the quality of an education children can get in this district is equal to the quality of education kids can get in any other district. My son, who's at DePaul, is an example. He went K through 12 in this district. He's getting straight A's at DePaul University with no remediation, and he got an academic scholarship out of Valley View. I want that for every child in our district, and I believe we have the capacity to do that. The purpose of this forum, again, is to solicit your support and to solicit your input so that we can better frame our strategic plan to meet the needs of all of our kids. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Assistant Superintendent Smith, and she will conduct the forum from this point forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchum. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to say that this, again, you will hear me reiterate key things that Dr. Mitchum has expressed, but let me do some introductions here. I'm going to formally introduce our senior administrative team, as well as members from the board who are here with us today. Dr. Mitchum introduced Gary Krizafi, Assistant Superintendent. We have Sharon Hawks, who's our Executive Director of Human Resources. Over here to my right is my lovely counterpart, Rachel Kinder, Assistant Superintendent for 612. And if you have not formally met me yet, my name is Venus Smith. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Pre-K 5. And we have our Vice President of the board here tonight. Now you see that I'm on evening mode, okay? So inject a little humor in there too. Rick Gugis, he's our Vice President of the board. Thank you for coming out today, Mr. Gugis. So welcome parents, community members. How many Valley View staff do we have here today? Excellent. Okay, how many parents do we have here today? And that was just the informal round of questions. So welcome everyone who's in this room. And just to set the stage here, again, I'm going to emphasize that the purpose today is to actively listen to you. This is not one of our typical forums that you come here and you hear us give you information and then you take notes and then you walk away. Today is the opportunity for you to give us your thoughts about what we're doing here in Valley View. What are some things that we're doing well? What are some suggestions in which we can incorporate into our next step of strategic planning? And this all helps us with our partnership. The key is about collaboration. The key is about trust. And I want to emphasize those 2 points because it is imperative that we all share the same language and we all agree on our true belief system for our students. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that is why we are here. And we hold ourselves deeply accountable. So it's interactive today. So let me talk about the handouts that you have on your tables. And I love to walk around, so excuse me. I like to get in there and just really make this the informal meeting that it really is today. And let me also say that we are being taped. Okay, so for those of you who weren't aware, we are being taped. You see the screens up here on the sides. This is going to be broadcast on our local cable television station, so just to give you a heads up about that, okay? So the blue handout is a consolidated version of our parent-friendly strategic plan, okay? I will be reviewing through that along with Rachel Kinder today, so if you have questions about that, feel free to ask. We're going to really move through those goals very quickly to give you more time for input. On the white copy is where you're going to be writing down your feedback. The yellow copy, and that's a special role. I'll talk about the special role. Every table, we're going to look at having a recorder write down the group's thoughts based off of the white handout. They're both the same, but the recorder is going to write on that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Then there's a half sheet where if you have additional questions and they're not answered in the manner that you want them answered today, that's where you write them, and we'll be compiling those questions also. Okay, so I'm not going to leave anybody behind. Sometimes I'm going to say, are you still with me? Thumbs up, thumbs down. But we're going to move through this so that when you leave, you feel like you've really had the opportunity to express yourself. Okay? So let me go through my questions here. And if the answer is yes, I want you to raise your hand. If you're a community member with interest in Valley View, raise your hand. Unanimous. Wonderful. Oh, that feels good. Everybody had their hand up. If you're a taxpayer, doesn't matter where, raise your hand. Oh, everybody had their hand up again. Oh, this is good. 100%. We had took a test, so we'd be 100% right now. If you're a parent guardian of a school-age child, doesn't matter where the child attends. Wow. Parent of a child in early childhood. Okay, look around. We may have you sitting together. Oh, we're going to move today. That's good. I'm thinking we're going to move today. We're going to move some tables around. Child in elementary. Okay. Yeah, I was looking at Member Gugis there. Yep. Okay, there you go. Child in middle school. Okay, look at your neighbors. Look around in the room. Okay. High school. STEP program. Grandparent. Okay, we have 2 proudly representing the grandparents in the room. Okay, that's right. Resident with no children in the district. Okay. Business owner invested in the community. Oh, there we go. 1. Okay, 1 hand up. Invested in the education of our children. All right. So we have some commonalities. We're all invested in the education of our children. That's why we're here, right? And we want to make sure that we do this right, because failure is not an option. All right. So we come together, we agree on that. We have differences, but those differences we respect, because that, again, will bring unique perceptions to how we're going to make this strategic plan represent all of us. Okay, so let's look at the white handout. And that's for every individual to have. Every person in this room should have a white handout. And you see the pillars? We're proud of our pillars. That should be the first side. And again, I want to emphasize that the goal is to listen to your feedback. If you find that we're not answering your questions specifically, because what forums do is to get input. This is not the time to have dialogue and answer your questions. We will have a set of forums in which we'll have more conversation. We will also look at having a frequently asked question page on the website, where if you have questions, we'll look to target your questions there. This is just to listen to you today, okay? So how many of you have seen these pillars outside of this room? All right. So I know I don't have to review that those represent Valley View's beliefs. The foundation is purposeful. Beliefs are deliberately placed there because that's where everything else starts. If you don't have a strong belief system, you're waving in the wind. You're fickle. You're indecisive. But when you have a strong belief system, you are willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that children get the quality education that they deserve. So that's why we have the belief system right there, strongly embedded in place. And everyone who works in this district shares that same belief system, that all children, no matter race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, they are deserving and they have a right to a quality education. No questions asked. Coming up from those beliefs would be rigor, instruction, assessment, and accountability. And so you'll be hearing those words a lot, because that's deeply embedded in our belief system. Now we're going to ask you, what do those words mean to you? So we're going to have some think time. Get the brain juices flowing today, right? Because that's really what we want. We want you to start talking. It's not for Rachel, Ken, and I to talk and share things. And we're partnering on facilitating. We have 6 forums total. I facilitated half, she's facilitating half. We're partners in this. It's not up to us to talk to you. We want you to talk to us and let us know what you think, okay? So I'm going to ask that each person think about what the words means to them. What does the word beliefs mean to you? What is your definition? You're going to come up with your own definition of beliefs. Same thing with rigor, instruction, assessment, and accountability. Then you're going to pick a recorder, okay, who will then take your input, and on the yellow sheet, they're going to try to merge those thoughts into one. And if you can't decide on a really good compact definition, write all of it down. We're okay. And if you still feel like your thoughts weren't captured on the yellow sheet, guess what? Give us the white sheet too, because we want that. Now, before we do this activity, first thing is to really know the people that you're talking to. And I saw that some people from like the different levels are like spaced out. And it's a little tight in here, so I'm not going to have you move just now. I'm going to be kind to you. I'm not going to have you move. So get to know the people that you're with. Please make sure they know your name and what do you hope to get out of today's forum. Okay, so let's do about 2 minutes of just introductions. Make sure they know who you are. And if they know who you are, tell them, what do you want to get out of today's forum? Okay, once you've done your introductions, ease right into those definitions. Start thinking individually of what those words mean to you. And then pick a recorder. Make sure you have a recorder for the group who's going to record the group's ideas on the yellow sheet. So ease right into those definitions. Right into the definitions. Think about what do those words mean to you. And we'll set the time here. Let's do 5 minutes. So we'll take about 5 minutes. Make sure if you need some water to keep those brain juices flowing, some cookies. We have some cookies on the side. How are you doing today? Welcome to our forum. Right now we're just introducing ourselves and then thinking about the words from our goals and interpreting what does that mean to you. Okay. This is the admin table. Okay.
I was sharing with them about last night.
Okay. Okay.
They didn't speak English. His parents didn't speak English. Mine very, very little. Didn't graduate from there. So home, she's actually realized, do your homework. But she was there. Do your homework. Do everything you have to do.
Okay, 2 more minutes. How many groups need more than 2 minutes? Okay, so we'll tack on an extra minute. Okay. Okay, 3 minutes.
I don't necessarily mean anyone's better. I'm just wondering. My wife, for example, gave me a Cinderella. She was kind of offended. It was a brand new high school, and there were no American except the principal who was out there. She couldn't understand it. She doesn't know. She's Catholic, I guess. Give or take. That's basically the set. But I didn't expect to say that.
That's, sir, and I have to point that out. That's where the cultural competency piece comes in, and the importance of making sure that diversity is reflected not only in our student population, which we know, but they need to have role models reflective of other groups also. And that comes to the adults, to the bus drivers, to the cafeteria workers, all of that.
Since I don't have any children in the system, I don't have any real awareness. Pretty integrated neighborhood. That wasn't my reason. My dad was just a special education.
Since you've got a mobile mic, are you going to walk around and talk?
You know what? I guess I can walk around. It's just like, hey, trying to loosen it up. Loosen it up. Okay, 1 more minute. I hear a lot of good conversation. This is exactly what is supposed to happen. Okay. Okay, as we wrap up, continue to write some final thoughts down, but as we wrap up, want to ensure that we keep moving. Tentatively, our end time is 11:30 at the latest, so we want to make sure we stay on time, be respectful. I know that some parents do have children to pick up. So let's get a sample definition for each of the pillars, starting with beliefs. Can a group share out with us what they wrote down? And I'm going to walk around and put you on the mic. You brave person, you. Or I'm just going to walk around and pick tables. I might do it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just like that. Let's do it that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're not? Okay, not enough time? Okay, well, let's just focus on beliefs. What did this group have for beliefs?
We said that values, what you stand for, integrity and respectfulness.
Values, what you stand for, integrity, respectfulness, and thank you. Thank you for that. Ms. Mondini? Yes. Thank you. What about rigor? Rigor. I'm just going to go over to this. Do I see a definition? Rigor? Oh, I see you wrote something down. Would you mind sharing with us, please? Yes.
I just talked about reaching the top quality education possible.
Reaching the top quality education possible. Yes. Yes, we're all in agreement with that one.
I think we had an interesting thought on this, that challenging classes. So not only differentiation for our highest learners, making sure that they're being pulled out and challenged greater, not just the challenge program, because there's kids within the regular schools who are above that, let's say, or above the group, but rigor at appropriate levels for the child. That there may be children who are struggling, so don't put the bar too high for them, but keep pushing them towards it.
Right, so when you have individualized instruction, the rigor is there at each personalized instruction plan for each child, and the rigor is there. And we heard the word challenging last night too. That came up with rigor. Thank you. What about instruction? And this is our Director of 612 Math and Science, Christy Bay, who's helping on the mic. Thank you. And Mr. Rander does too. We're all tag teaming here. What about instruction? If I see it written down, I'm coming to you. I'm coming. Don't leave me out here. Don't leave me out here.
I'll do it again.
Okay, thank you. Instruction.
Differentiation and quality.
Differentiation and quality.
Yeah.
Okay, that's because you're going to hear that word a lot. And differentiation, we also have talked about what does that mean to us?
Yeah.
But that individualized instruction, but the rigor.
Yeah.
Get back to the rigor, making sure it's rigorous for each child. Thank you, Ms. Bondini. I may just have you come up here and just take over. Just take over. Lead the group.
And
Love it.
I wanted to include one word, engagement. I think it has to be engaging instruction, no matter what level.
Yes, yes.
And when we're differentiating, we have to make sure it's engaged
And-
across every level, because the Common Core, the new book, it's really not that engaging.
Okay,
You
so
do the math. I'm
so
just
the
saying, like, we have
engagement,
to-
so we have to make sure that we make it interesting. Think about our audience, right?
Exactly.
Always thinking about our audience. Okay. Assessment. Oh. Okay.
I just wrote down that like a standard for teaching, teachers being held to like a certain standard. I know they are, but just following up on that and just making sure that, you know, every teacher kind of is following through with each point of what is supposed to be taught, what the instruction is.
Okay, so teachers being held to a certain standard, following with the standards.
Yes.
And making sure they're clear of what they're teaching.
Right.
Okay. Assessment. Okay, we're just going to pick somebody. Who has something? Oh, there's somebody writing over here. Jill, you have something for assessment. Oh, okay, but assessment, clear, but that instruction and assessment do go hand in hand. So if you have assessments in place, shouldn't they be aligned to the instruction? So there's that clear, explicit link. What about accountability? You've heard it phrased a couple of times this morning. Okay, Jill.
We decided that holding everyone accountable, not just the district for our children, but the parents, the children, everybody, because it's not just on the teacher, principal, or whomever. Those children, those parents need to be accountable. You're not sending your kid to school for daycare because you got to go to work. You're sending them there for an education to better themselves and better our future. So being accountable throughout everything.
Yes, that's a beautiful way to say it. Everybody being accountable, not just one group holding the fort for everything. Everybody has to have a partnership in it. Okay, wow, nice. So that gives you a glimpse of what the next interactive piece is going to be like. I'm going to be floating around and asking for volunteers again when we get to the next feedback piece. But before we do that, let's just briefly recap the goals. Now, you do have the parent-friendly version, and I don't want to exclude staff out from this staff-friendly version too on here, on the blue handout. I'm just going to go quickly through the slides, highlight some things for you, and we've heard these through our definitions this morning. High expectations, okay. Non-negotiable with the high expectations, that's a given. Providing a rigorous curriculum, making sure that our instruction is effective, having the high quality assessments, make sure there's that clear link between the two. Recruiting and supporting qualified staff, as you heard Dr. Mitchum talk about this morning. Embracing and celebrating diversity, that's why it's important to have the cultural competency piece, and that has to be infused into everything that we do. Have the lens of cultural competency when we're talking about our instruction so that it meets the needs of all of our students. Encourage, and let me also make sure that when we say embrace, that just doesn't mean to respect diversity, but embrace it and take ownership of it. To know that we're different, but to embrace our differences and to really accept that, wow, we can learn from each other in our unique ways. And also encourage community, parent, and school partnerships. This is an example of what we're doing to strengthen our relationship with you. This is so important to have this type of communication with you because that helps to build trust, that helps to build that relationship, and we'll continue to do more of this. Goal 2, rigor. And I did this last night too, but the focus is to make sure that you look at the top statement, because that captures all of it. We believe that every student has a capacity to learn and to achieve his or her full potential. Notice the we there. That's just not Dr. Mitchum, Rachel Kinder, myself, the senior admin team, or any of the district or building administration. That means that you as parents and the community, we are collectively sharing in this belief statement. Same with rigor. We believe that every student has the ability to achieve at his or her potential and are challenged individually with higher levels of thinking and are prepared for post-secondary life. And just capturing some of the key points there, make sure we're explicit. Make sure we have curriculum alignment. That's why it's key that all levels, elementary, middle, high, are in communication with one another so that there are no surprises when a child goes from 5th grade to 6th grade or from 8th grade to 9th grade and leaving high school to university level. A strong focus on literacy and mathematics. You're going to hear a lot about that. There's that tie to Common Core state standards. I heard a parent talking about it over at this table, how it's important that we are now held to universal expectations through the Common Core state standards. 48 states have adopted the Common Core, and that means that every state has the same set of expectations for what children need to know at each grade level. And so when they leave high school and they travel to a different state, those expectations are the same, and they're not set up for failure because now we've leveled the playing field. And it was made clear to them what they need to know for that college experience. And that's critical. We don't want to set children up for failure, do we? So the Common Core state standards, college career readiness, they go hand in hand. They're synonymous. So when you hear Common Core, you're going to hear a lot about college career readiness. Those are the terms that you're going to hear a lot, and you'll hear the acronym CCSS or CCR. That's what they mean. Now just make sure that our children are ready for post-secondary life here. Professional development. That's huge. Building capacity for teachers to really understand Common Core. And we have to have full implementation with Common Core in 14-15. So guess what? That means that we're going to have to make sure that our staff are given the tools. They need to have the tools in order to be prepared for that full implementation. So that comes through trainings, that comes through providing the materials, and that yet we're making sure that we're strategic in that because, again, it needs to be a balance. So we always try to find that balance with how are we providing the development and still allowing teachers to do what they do well. Community learning opportunities, we're looking to increase those. So events such as this, but where it's interactive, where you're taking things away so you can better support your child at home, and making sure that those partnerships are in place with our external organizations such as libraries, universities, and community organizations. Goal 3, we will continue to develop curriculum instruction that meets the needs of all our diverse learners. Okay. You see those common threads. You're going to hear the same words over and over. I want to highlight the common language of expectations, just like we wanted to know what do those words mean to you. We want to make sure that we can get inside your minds and say, okay, this is from a parent perspective what rigor means. We want to make sure we're all in agreement and we're lining ourselves up so we're heading in the same direction. Collaboration. Professional learning communities are important because we're not in silos. We don't work in isolation. We need to always work in a team mentality, making sure that we all are focused on the same end goal, which is student achievement, and then making sure that our decisions are data-driven. Goal 4, we will continue to provide consistent, common measures for gauging district teacher and student progress. How will we do this? Again, through data-based decisions. Making sure we make well-informed decisions and not in isolation, always being collaborative. Being responsive to meet the needs of students. Responsiveness also means to be flexible. So as things change, because we have state expectations and we have federal expectations under Common Core state standards, we always have to remain flexible with that. Making sure that we're providing employee performance appraisal and professional development. How will this be measured? Increase achievement for all students and reduce student achievement gaps. We don't want the gaps to be there between our subgroups. And that's where the rigor comes in with individualized lesson planning. And increase the student attendance and graduation rates. Last but not least, goal 5, accountability. There's that we again. We will hold ourselves accountable. not just at the district level, not just at the building level, but our community. You're partners with us. That's why you came out today. When you watch this on TV, you're partners with us. And so we want to make sure that we're all holding ourselves accountable. And that's key. Like Jill said, we all hold ourselves accountable so that we can truly get the best results possible. Making sure that we're monitoring and evaluating our curriculum and instructional programs, utilizing data and analyzing it, and transparent communication. Being clear of what we want to do and talking with each other at every point of the way. So here's the next interactive piece. Look at your back page of the white handout. Look at the back side. Here are those questions now. We're going to ask now for your input based off of the brief review of the goals. Now, we didn't give you the long version of the plan. That's coming. We just wanted to give you the nutshell version so that you can put your mind around it today to really give us some good feedback, okay? So, here are those questions. Again, you're going to have individual think time and then share out with the recorder of your group what the group finds would be the best answer, or just merge all of them together. It's up to you. What should we continue to do here in Valley View? What do you want us to change? That's important. What do you want us to change? We want to hear it. What could we value more? Maybe there's some things in our belief system you didn't hear today we want to add into there. How can you help us do that individually or as a team? How can the community support us? So think about community agencies that we haven't tapped into that we really need to seek out a relationship with. Okay, so we're going to set it for about 10 minutes, Catherine, 10 minutes, maybe more, depending on if you really have a lot to say. We'll go at your pace here, then we'll come back together as a group. Okay. Okay, 4 more minutes. Now, how many groups need more time than 4 minutes? Okay, so we're gonna up it 2 more minutes, so 6 minutes, we'll do 6 minutes. Okay, got it. 2 more minutes? We'll take 3 more minutes. I still see people really engaged in discussion. So 3 more minutes. Okay, we're winding down here. 1 more minute. All right. Now, I know that some groups are still talking. Feel free to continue to talk. Get your final thoughts out there. Get the really important ones down on paper. We're going to get feedback now for each of those questions. And what we'll do is, depending on how many people feel comfortable sharing out, we'll do like 2 for each one. So, slowly bring it back together now. Everybody with me? Thumbs up. Everybody with me? Thumbs up if you're with me. That's right. That first one was a really big question, okay? And we want to hear from you, and we'll just get some samples here, just so that we know what some thoughts are already, okay, right away. We'll be recording all the information after the forum, collecting it all, looking at it. The first one was, what should we continue? Anyone want to share out a recorder or someone not the recorder in the group? Doesn't even have to be the recorder. Who wants to be the first to share out? Thank you. What's your name again?
Beverly Armstrong.
Thank you, Miss Armstrong. Thank you. Shake your hand there.
What we decided was the best thing to continue is we have noticed the dedication of the teachers all over this district. Teachers are staying late for the first, well, not for the first time. Many teachers stay late, but some teachers are actually going in on Saturdays, which has been unheard of. Another thing that we decided that we really want to see continue is the accountability in the high schools, our one high school. We have a rep at this table who taught at that school last year, and it was to the point at the end of last year where she said she'd never come back, and that has improved. So that's what we want to see continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Armstrong, for that feedback. Anyone else want to add to what should we continue?
I just want to say to administration and everything, I think everybody's heart is in the right place. You care about the kids. I think everybody cares about the kid from the top down, and you need to keep that in mind. And you're doing a great job with that.
Okay. Thank you both for that feedback. What do you want us to change? Oh, do you want to add to that? We have Christy and
Yeah, I'm
Ms.
Jennifer Fields.
Ms. Fields.
As far as what we should continue, our group talked about the push out to the community is excellent. There's so much information on the internet and going out to the students, which is going out to the parents, and just continuing that makes us know that you guys are trying so hard, and it makes us want to partner with you guys in this, great improvement that you guys are speaking of, and we want to help. So that push to the community is great. Embracing the diversity is huge. Sometimes people can fear it because it's just the unknown, and it does seem like we're at a little bit of a disadvantage, but just embracing it, talking about it, makes people more comfortable with it. So if you continue on with that, I think it's in the right direction. So I think that's really good.
Thank you, Ms. Fields.
Hi, my name is LaWanda Western, and I have a son that is in Hubert Humphrey. I have one child, a son, that is in Jonas Salk. And I think that some things that could be changed is like one of the ladies said before, is accountability. Not just for our teachers, but for the parents. I think that once a standard is set as it concerns academics, whether the child is able to perform at a particular level, we have a Common Core standard that we have to meet for 2014. We're not going to meet that level if we don't start putting the challenge on our children and then requiring that same thing from ourselves, from our teachers, from the faculty, as well as from the parents. And just constantly reiterating, whether it's through email, whether it's through pamphlets, whatever it may be, to get the word out that we're constantly raising this bar. That this bar is not the way that it normally has been. It's not at the normal level. We're not going right across the board. But now we're competing nationally. We're not wanting our children to see such a big apple and that they have to swallow it whole, but just bit by bit, that their vocabulary, that their social studies bit by bit is going to increase, and this challenge has to be met. Constantly feeding them that this challenge needs to be met, whether it's in our periodics, whether it's in our daily newsletters, whether it's on the internet, constantly being informed, letting us know. I think as a parent, I want to know that my teacher wants the best, and not just him saying it, but that I see that input. I want to see more homework. I want to see, my son's been in school for 3.5 weeks, and he's a 6th grader. I begged him to get into honors classes, and he has just now been switched to that honors classes, and he's not seen any homework. We haven't seen any homework. What I do with him at home is what he's doing at school. I think my school standard for my child should exceed my home standard for my child. And it should exceed it in that, not that it's burdensome, but that it just challenges him. And it brings him to the point where he wants to meet this. He feels the encouragement and the exertion from his teacher, his peers, and everyone is in challenge to meet this 2014 Common Core standard. And they don't even have to know it has to be met by 2014 or whatever year, just that there's a constant, gradual increase.
Thank you for that, Ms. Western.
Thank you.
So we really are capturing what you want us to really look at moving forward this year, next year. Anyone else? What about the next question? What could we value more? Sure, no problem.
We discussed a lot about communication at our table, and it's funny because some people think the communication's fantastic, and we do not.
Perception, right?
Yeah, well, I think the website's hard to navigate. Just finding the information, like sometimes you don't know exactly what you're looking for, and it's hard to get there. And I think our table here is very adept on websites and have developed them and written for them, and you know, we understand it, so it's not from a lack of understanding. Helping us understand where we can help our children. Whether that's, you know, we've talked about how do I get my kid into honors classes in middle school? Well, it's not on the elementary side of things, it's on the middle school side of things. Well, I didn't even know to look there and what's expected, and how do you communicate that to us? Because if we know what's expected, or if you can help us, we'll help you, because we'll be able to help our children get there.
We talked a lot about, or a little bit about, providing us as parents resources. We have some math people at our table, and I said, you know, I'm, as a parent, constantly at my teacher's desk saying, what can I do as a parent? What can I do? Why isn't the district coming out and saying, this is a good website for 2nd graders to use in math? Or, you know, I said, you know, Spelling City was introduced to my kids this year by one teacher. Well, I think it's a great resource for 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. But more importantly, if it doesn't align with the Common Cores, I want the district to say this aligns with the Common Cores, this is what you should be using at home if you want to do extra resources, you know, and stuff like that. That's personally what I think, and just reiterating the fact that, especially at the school level, your websites and your communication is very poor. Our principal page isn't updated. It still says, you know, it's from last year. You know, give us information and stuff like that, and we'll use it.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? Because we're hearing the communication piece, that's the accountability, value. Let's add one more in here. All right, Ms. Fields. Bring my mic over to you.
I'll be quick because I know I've talked a couple times, but I totally agree. I had on here as far as the parents. I think sometimes the teachers kind of, I don't know if they just don't think the parents care or not, but we really do care. I mean, you don't really give us, I just don't feel like the teachers in this district really believe that the parents are willing to do as much as we are willing to do. And I try to tell them that. I'm like, you know, I talk to parents all the time. I'm waiting out for my kid, and we really want to know what you need. Yeah, we're here. I ask them, I'm emailing all the time, but it's such on an individual basis that I'm like, well, I'm helping my kid, but if we could help the whole class, I think the whole, you know, class would do better. But like, I'll just ask, you know, what does he need? What can I do? And they'll tell me, But I'm like, if we could maybe use the pages, like you're saying, better. Some of the teachers do. My oldest has a teacher this year that really uses the page, and then he goes on the page. I mean, it makes a big difference. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that if we could just change that part of the culture as far as really believing in the parents, and then even if you have parents that aren't interested, they will as the group changes, as everybody has higher expectations for the parents.
Wow, thank you for that. Hearing a lot of key feedback about the communication piece, and I'm just trying to make sure that we capture the essence of what you're saying, and that parents, I'm hearing that you are willing to help us. We just have to seek out your help, and we want to make sure that we have updated current information and how to make it easily accessible to you, and making sure that it's engaging so kids want to go home and just do it. And so these are some things where I'm hearing some real.
Another thing I think the district could value is teachers' time. I was saying here, and no offense, professional development in this district is phenomenal. It's great. I've been through it. It's wonderful. But the teachers are being pulled way too often. I mean, some of the kindergartners, our neighbors, are coming home saying, oh, I had 2 different teachers this week. And it's going to affect rigor. It's going to affect everything in this district if we keep pulling them. We understand that there has to be professional development, and it's great, but we need to let our teachers teach. If not, it's going to fall apart. So that's one thing that I think the value would be on.
Okay, thank you for that. Looking to find that balance, right? Because it is all about balance. It really is. What about how you can help us? And then I heard some suggestions on how you as parents and community members can help. Anyone want to add to that? Really just seeking out parents more in the classroom, so not just that one child achieves, but all children in their classroom.
We think it would be helpful if there was a liaison that went from each school to talk to administration, so that teachers' concerns, such as being pulled from the classroom, could be related to administration.
This was my little brain thing that I was thinking the other day, because I don't know why, because I'm crazy. But I do think that there is a potential for getting highly involved, as well as maybe not so highly involved parents, to start, working together so that we can feel that we are being heard in this type of forum. Because I really didn't know what to anticipate today, so I do like that you guys are actually listening to us versus just telling us a bunch of stuff. And I think this could continue to go on so that you're really hearing what we feel and see on a daily basis with our children, because I love my teachers, I love my school, but I do think there's a lot of things that have to be improved. So I want to maybe, put that out there, that maybe we could have some type of forum like this with consistent people that can also drag more parents to get involved, maybe one at every grade level for every school, to potentially just meet to go at it and talk about the issues that are coming up as the new curriculums are being implemented and things that are changing so quickly here, that I feel like we're all in the whirlwind this year, and we want to support our teachers and support our administration. We all want to get to the same goal, and I think we have, maybe as parents, some input that you guys aren't going to get just from the teachers or working on the outside of it that we see. So that's one of the things I think we could really do.
Thank you for that. And that liaison piece, that linkage, and making sure that communication is tight. I want to make reference to this. It is very important that you give us your email then, so we can make sure that we have that communication piece in place. So as you're hearing more about forums that are coming up, as you're hearing about changes and rationale for changes, because we want to make sure that we're transparent always, we can now communicate to you via email, and then that also helps you when you know something's coming up to gather your neighbors up, come out, because really it's about growing this. You're here today. We have parents and community members that will be watching us on TV. We had parents from last night and last week, and then we have some upcoming forums. We have one tomorrow night at 6:30 at Bolingbrook High School. But this is how we start this growth. And so I really want to make sure that I highlight that communication, that liaison piece, because that's important too. We look at various ways to communicate out, but it is really important to have that word of mouth piece and having parents support us and getting people to come out.
Why are we not using email more?
we are using email, but I know that some emails aren't in the system, and so we want to make sure that we have the accurate emails, especially the ones who are attending these forums.
But I'm saying at the school level, like why are we still having so much paper coming home? Because I don't think people check like the elementary sites because they're not being updated very often. So I do because I'm kind of crazy like that, and I'll check it at least once a week. But if nothing ever gets updated on my school site, why does not every parent who has an email address give it to the school? Why are we not requiring that at registration?
And that's an area in which we need improvement in. And there's also that balance with the communication piece, because some parents do veer more toward the paper mode, and some are more technologically savvy, and so we need to look at how are we catering to those different modes of communication.
I understand the socioeconomic aspect of it, but we need to sort of start forcing
Yeah.
that issue, I think, and start moving people towards that.
Thank you for that. So, with that debriefing, anything else before we move on to just focusing in on our key highlights? And we're going to look at the elementary highlights, middle highlights, and high school highlights. Things that we've made progress in, things that we still need to develop and make priorities for this school year and remaining years.
From the standpoint of how can the community support us, I'm going to relate it back to accountability. And one of the things that we were discussing at our table is ownership. And I feel that it's important that parents, community, et cetera, feel a sense of ownership of their local school, this district, et cetera. And then when we get that feeling of ownership and that increased sense of accountability, then we can pull more resources in, houses of worship, churches, et cetera. I mean, this is our community. And so I think people should feel a sense of it's their obligation to get involved and to do what they should do to help our children.
Thank you for that. And Darletta Payton is our consultant for college and career readiness, and so thank you for sharing out for us. And then we're also looking at how that integrates into our district planning when we look at that college and career piece. Now we're just going to do some highlights, and for the sake of time, I'm going to try to keep my piece short. Now, we will have spring forums coming up, and we'll communicate via email, some other methods of communication, how we're going to be sharing out the finalized district plan, and then have more conversation of where we are with our initiatives. So, for instance, Alder Kindergarten is being implemented this year, first of its kind in Valley View. That is significant, increasing the instructional time and making sure that we have that rigor in place, and that's and the Common Core is embedded into our literacy instruction at the kindergarten level as well as first grade, and then math also. There's a Common Core alignment with all 6th grade levels, which was an aggressive move. We wanted to make sure that we were ready, fully embedded 14-15 with Common Core, and then providing that necessary training and looking at how to strike that balance and being strategic and being mindful of how our teachers are being impacted by that. So that, again, that has not gone on deaf ears. We are looking at how to strike that balance. But also summer learning experience. I know that you've heard about summer learning experience too. This past summer, that was new to Valley View, first of its kind, and that wasn't a remediation program, that was an enhancement program. So that met the needs of all learners. We've gathered feedback from parents as well as teachers, just seeing how we can refine the program for next year, look at expansion of that. That also had a Common Core focus in the summer learning program, so we're very proud of that at Valley View. That was a team effort with the summer learning. Also, we are looking at the interventions that we're using for our students who are in need of more support. We just conducted a reading audit last year. We're looking at next stages this year in terms of training, but again, it comes back to that balance, making sure that we're looking at in-house training and looking at how to balance that so we're not sacrificing instructional time, quality instructional time in that classroom. And we're also looking at what are research-based best practices in regards to reading interventions, and then we'll be doing the same for math very shortly. Block scheduling is something that you might hear where buildings are looking at ways in which to creatively schedule math and reading. So there's the common time and there's that flexible grouping piece. So we can have more differentiation occur. And there's flexibility. We don't believe in that tracking, but being flexible and making sure that we're being responsive as children's needs change academically. And priorities moving forward. The goals that you see here today, those are our priorities moving forward in regards to elementary. And we have that vertical articulation piece with middle and high. That's a priority for us because we all want to stay consistently moving in the same direction, and that is critical. And so I'm going to turn it over to Rachel Kinder, who's our Assistant Superintendent for Middle and High Schools, and then she'll highlight just a few things for the middle and high.
Thank you, Venus. I just want to highlight again that with the implementation of MAP, which stands for Measures of Academic Progress, that has provided us with assessment data. This is year 2 for elementary and middle school and year 1 for 9th and 10th grade at the high school. But this data is really providing us with that real information to say what changes do we need with our curriculum, what changes do we need with our instruction, and what growth are we seeing, and we're continually measuring and monitoring that growth. So it's allowing us to go truly down that differentiated path and meet those high standards. So that our use of that data and that information is growing much more in year 2, and it will continue to progress, and we'll be much more adept at a district level and at a teacher level in the classroom at meeting individual student needs through our instruction. The implementation of Common Core state standards is at varying levels for different subject areas. We have integrated the mathematics standards at grades 6 and 7, and we are rolling on with that. That's also taking place at elementary. So that was a conversation at the table in the back there. That is actively in place, as is English Language Arts, and we are very aware and our progress in having the full implementation K-12. Vertical articulation, that's a big word to basically say, make sure that you have the end in mind as from day one, the very beginning. So we have a very clear picture where we want our students to be when they leave Valley View, and we back map all the way down to our kindergarten, and we ensure that we are preparing them for that next step from the moment they enter our doors as kindergartners. And so that is very much a focus and a priority moving forward as we implement the Common Core standards fully. And ensuring that when we say all learners, we truly mean all learners. So we have a priority moving forward to look at our honors and gifted program K-12. So from students who are in challenge and students who are not in challenge but are needing additional challenge, additional rigor in the curriculum, all the way up through middle school and then high school, preparing them for honors, advanced placement courses, and so on and so forth. So we are looking at not only curricular changes, but the instructional changes that go along with it and meeting those students' needs all the way through, as much as we are looking at students who need some extra support to meet that minimum benchmark. And so you may have heard of the middle school enhancement program being a big push this year, and that so many students are involved in this course that incorporates some online learning through the Odyssey program. This was a program that was put in place to help fill the gaps for students because that standard has been raised so significantly with the Common Core standards. We know that we're going to need extra time, extra support, and extra focus on those literacy and mathematics skills. So that program is one example of a way that we are providing a different venue to have individualized instruction for our students. That's in addition to what they're doing in their core classrooms on a daily basis. And that extra supplement will help them to meet this ever increasing standard so that they are prepared at the end. And so just as we're doing that for our learners who are not at the benchmark for college and career readiness, we need to continue to do that for our learners who are there and beyond, because we need to ensure that we're meeting their needs just as well. So that is a definite priority for moving forward with curricular and instructional changes in Valley View.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Next steps. So I know everyone's thinking about, again, I'll reiterate next steps. We are now going to take your feedback, review your feedback, also look at your questions. The questions should be added onto the half sheet. We want to make sure that we look at all the questions, and then you will see an FAQ posted very soon, frequently asked question page. and we'll be responding back to those questions. We'll be seeing some common themes there, and then merging some of those questions if we see repetitive ones. Also, we're looking at making sure that the strategic plan is made available at your child's school. Also at the district level, we want to make sure that we send communication out via email, via letter, about when that district strategic plan is available for review. It'll be several pages. We want to make sure that we are mindful of the language so that it really meets the needs of our audience, our parents, our community members, teachers, administration. And then follow-up forums in the spring. So we'll be communicating out when those follow-up forums will be, because again, we need to continue this on. This is a good thing. We hear you. This is a good thing. So we want to make sure that we communicate out at different intervals of the year and next year. What are we doing? And what continued progress are we making? And we always look for improvement. It's always going to have to be in a continuous improvement model. And additional resources, and I'll ask Dr. Mitchum for any closing thoughts, but additional resources that came up. We want to share a couple of things with you, parents and community members. We do have the National PTO organization here does have parent-friendly version Common Core state standards for each grade level. So if you go to this website, and it's also on your blue handout, but if you go to this website, you click on the tab Public Policy, and then find the link that says Common Core State Standard Initiatives. Click on that, and it'll lead you right to grade levels, broken down by grade level. You click on your child's grade level, your children's grade level, and it shows you what your child should be learning. Okay, and remember, we are in heavily implementation mode, making sure that your children are actually learning what those expectations are. Okay? And then we also have another website. It gives you some really good information about current trends and practices in education, and that's familyeducation.com. So please start that and help that to be your informative guide. And then I'm going to turn over to Dr. Mitchum if he has any closing thoughts. You've been a wonderful group this morning. We heard a lot of great feedback, and we thank you for that.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you again for taking the time out of your day to come here and engage us in this process. I heard many of the questions that were posed, and the one that intrigued me the most was when you talked about with our communication and the need to use our electronic medium. And a thought came to mind. I was invited to a think tank in California by invitation only, and they invite particular superintendents from around the country to come to this think tank. And what I learned from that think tank is that when I first got there, my first thought was, as I heard these superintendents communicating, that they were all like kind of nuts and crazy. And then I thought, well, maybe I need to reflect because I'm sitting with them. But they really were like way out there, and I'm like, boy, these people are kind of crazy. And then I'm like, well, why am I sitting here? So I must be as well. But each of us had something that was going on in our districts that somehow this consortium found to be way out in front. And one of the things was this communication, which brings me to my point that there was a district that was 85% low income, and they thought they couldn't move to an electronic medium for which to communicate. And, you know, they just, rather than being a simulator, they just jumped off the cliff and did it. And they have 97% of their people engaged in online registration. And it saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And online communication in terms of grades and everything that they did. And this is 85% low income, because what they found was one of the things that people now find very valuable is this thing. And they don't care how poor you are, everybody's got a smartphone. And so, and how they found out before they did this was they checked to see how many people in the community paid at least one bill online, and they found that well over 90-something% of the community paid at least one bill online. So, and we are nowhere near 85% low income. So that's something that I think we can, you know, we just have to kind of jump off the cliff, take the risk. We can save ourselves some money and increase our communication. So we're hearing what you're saying. Larry took a lot. That's not Larry. Larry took a lot of notes, same suit. Larry took a lot. He's shaking his head like I'm way better looking than Larry.
Certainly younger.
Right, and younger, right. More suave, all that, right. But we do thank you again for coming. Please tell your friends and neighbors. Again, what's disheartening to us is that we don't have more people here. And we know that probably your kids are going to be just fine because you're engaged, and we're going to engage you, but we want to get them all. So if you could please spread the word, we want your input so that we can move forward in a way that we all can buy into. So thank you again very much.